Chainsaw Man, Chapter 127 review. And if you like chapter reviews and anime content, there's plenty more on this channel. So we have a pretty great chapter here today. So this chapter wastes no time, and we see Asa about to have depression uploaded into her brain by the Falling Devil. And Yoru is just looking spooked, and the Falling Devil says, "I can tell your attachment to life is already weak." And yeah, of course, because Asa is crippling chronic depression made manifest. And the Falling Devil talks Asa to letting go and giving into her trauma. And Yoru just has the face of, oh shit, oh fuck. But jokes aside, this is a pretty good job from Fujimoto showing how people with depression can hit their breaking points. In this case, it's obviously represented by a fictitious devil, but it's not all that dissimilar. So while Asa is falling, she is talking herself deeper and deeper into negative thoughts. And she has one final thought before she thinks she's about to die. And she thinks that she has one regret, and she wishes that even if it was only with one person, that with all her heart she wished she had, and then it gets cut off. I think the implication of what she was going to say is pretty clear here. It's probably the same as when she last quote-unquote died. And before she's able to finish this thought, Denji grabs her. And obviously she doesn't know it's Denji, so she just shouts Chainsaw Man, is a little surprised. But to his surprise, she is saying, "No, I've accepted it. I'm ready to die." She says life is nothing but pain and crushed expectations, and she goes into full doomer mentality. At this point, they're both floating upwards to go and fall. And Denji is, to his credit, trying his hardest to talk about happy thoughts. And Denji finally starts to understand the Falling Devil's ability, which is the worse you feel, the heavier you get and float upwards. And then it just drops your ass, as you'd expect. So he is just screaming about cats and dogs because he doesn't really have anything else to say. And it does seem to work a little bit in that they stop. And Asa says, "Don't make me remember cats." And then we get to what I think is the most important scene in this entire chapter, is that Denji, to calm her down, finally opens up about his own trauma. And he says, "I know how you feel. Believe me, I've been there." And Asa says, "What would you know? No one has it worse than me." And we actually see Denji pause and take a moment to think about what he is going to say next. And he says, "Just when life seems super awesome, you let your guard down and things just get screwed up out of nowhere. And things just keep piling like a hamburger made of crap." And Asa asks him, "How did you get over that?" And Denji says, "I haven't, I'm not over it." And that he only lives because he's looking forward to something. And she unfortunately asks what that is. And he says sex, because of course he would. So I'm sorry Denji, but you don't get points for this one. And after he says this, Asa looks far less depressed, but far more disgusted. And that's how the chapter ends. And I want to talk about this one quite a bit, because I think this is one of the most important chapters in the entirety of Part 2 of Chainsaw Man. Because we finally get to see Denji's full growth from Part 1, because he's not the same person anymore. Part 1 Denji would have failed to save Asa in this situation, because Part 1 Denji would have had no idea what to tell her, because he had yet to experience the trauma of losing power in Aki that allowed him to empathize with her and talk her down. Denji from Part 2 has subtle but significant changes from Part 1 Denji. Because dare I say that Part 2 Denji has actually matured quite a bit, even if he still absolutely says stupid shit. And when he says, "Oh, I only want to have sex" at the end of the chapter, I don't even believe this entirely. He has a pretty major reason to stay alive, considering that he is raising Makima 2. And if he messes up raising her, well, Makima 2 could be way worse than Makima 1. I am very curious to see how Denji, Asa, and Yoru's characters will all end up. Because after this whole event, Yoru and Asa have to have a talk, because Asa says she's afraid of Yoru. And Yoru definitely took this personally. And I really don't think that Yoru is going to hate Chainsaw Man forever, because at the end of the day, Yoru's never going to kill Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is just too strong. And a huge theme that's been running in this arc is people getting past their trauma. And this includes Yoru, because Yoru is traumatized by Chainsaw Man. And I think a huge part of Yoru's character arc is going to be getting over this hatred of the Chainsaw Man. Because during this entire part, we see that Asa and Yoru are influencing each other's worldviews. And Denji and Asa are influencing each other as well. I don't think it has to end tragically, I'll be honest. A lot of people think it will. I don't see why it has to, because that was really saved for mostly Part 1. Part 1 was really a completely different beast from Part 2. Part 2 really only focuses on Denji, Asa, and Yoru. And we already see that Asa is willing to die, so I don't really see what their character gains from dying, though she could die after finding a reason to live. The thing with Denji and Asa in this part of the story is that they're both emotionally closed off, and for both of them, it's due to traumatic circumstances. And trauma, they're really never going to get over, because you don't really get over your mother dying right in front of you. And Denji is never going to get over Power and Aki dying right in front of him. And this brings me back into this chapter again, because in this chapter we see that they're both learning to cope better. And personally, I like this and I think it's done really well. And it's what I like about part 2 in general. Even in the middle of battles like the aquarium and the falling devil, we get time to spend with the actual characters and their inner thoughts. It's far less of Denji just revving his chainsaw and chopping into something. And some people might absolutely hate this about part 2. And even though Yoru is trying to turn Denji's head into like a little machete thing, I'm going to make a really ludicrous prediction here and say I don't think that Denji is in fact going to become a sword at the end of Chainsaw Man part 2. Don't roast me, I know, truly crazy thoughts coming out of the brain of Quirkless Shinobi today. There will probably be something horribly tragic that happens between Asa, Yoru, and Denji, and whether it will directly kill the characters off or just have a bit of a falling out that's temporary, that remains to be seen, but I hope Fujimoto doesn't go down the exact same path as Power and Aki all over again, because it was a great point in the story and everything just went to shit all at once. But if it happens again, well, this time everyone sees it coming. Now, on the flip side of this, if you don't like part 1, well, part 1 had to happen for part 2 to be as good as it is. And honestly, I really liked part 1, but I was not remotely as invested in part 1 as I am in part 2. But Fujimoto, I do like your fights. Please keep cooking, don't stop. And as for this chapter, I think this is one of the best chapters in all of part 2. I don't know if many people are going to share that opinion, but I really like this one. If you enjoy videos like this, like and subscribe for more. And as always, thanks for watching.